first some general items. Speed-wise, yours came as around 119.
Okay.
The average is 119, which is pretty good. So this is elite men's average, including professional players, college players, and some teaching professionals. So you're generating more speed than the average. And then when the speed is normalized to the body height, it's even better. So for your height, you're generating a lot of speed. Now the swing time, so this is beginning of the backswing,
Okay.
and then this is impact.
Okay.
So overall, it takes slightly less than 900 milliseconds, which is good. So men's average is a slight over 1,000. So you have a bit faster backswing compared to the average. But one thing, so if you look at the clever speed pattern here, it's almost symmetric here. So this is during the backswing. The backswing clever speed is almost symmetric.
So you're saying from the start of the backswing to the top
of backswing
is the same speed.
So it's increasing at the same rate and then decreasing.
Okay.
So this shape here is symmetric about the line, the vertical line at the middle here, right? In the middle.
That thing?
Try to have the peak caliber speed more in the second half instead of in the middle here. So what this means is you're just speeding up and then slowing down in similar rate.
Okay.
But instead, initially you can go a bit slowly here, then build the climax toward the end of the backswing. So when you have a peak speed a bit later, then from that peak speed to a change of direction, you have to quickly decelerate and then change the direction.
Right.
That gives more effect on the downswing.
Okay.
Yes, so that way you can connect the second part of backswing and the downswing better.
Got it.
So you'll have more benefit. So instead of having just throw and then simply slow down, try to build the climax more toward the backswing, as if you're angry. Angry.
Okay.
Then you'll benefit from the better connection between the end of backswing to downswing here.
Because like you say, I got a break to start the downswing.
Yeah. So in this one, so you simply go up and slow down and then start the downswing, but build the climax, and so you have an active slow down and then coming down.
Okay.
And then this is the top view. So currently the club head is moved, the swing plane. This large rectangle is a swing plane. It's almost aligned toward the target, so which is pretty good. For the driver, it's just slightly outward, but this is okay. And then your hand motion plane is going slightly outward. This rectangle here is a hand motion plane. So on the average here, the actually club head shows about 2 degree outward. This particular trial is slightly inward, but on the average, this is about 2 degrees outward, and then your hand motion plane is about 4.5 degrees outward.
Okay, like on the way down.
So this is basically based on the club head trajectory from horizontal to horizontal.
Okay.
And for the hand motion, it's from lead arm parallel to club parallel.
Okay.
But the only thing is this stand deviation. Stand deviation is a bit bigger. Okay. That means the direction changes trial to trial. It should be under 1 degree, but it's over 1 degree.
Got it.
Now this is the swing plane. So this straight line is the swing plane here, calculated from the club motion. So you have a really clean planar motion here, from horizontal to horizontal here. And then your slope of the swing plane is a bit steep for your height. Okay, for your height, this should be about 46 degrees. So this has to go slightly below this point here.
Okay.
Coming this way, but it's slightly steeper than typical. And then if we look at the motion of the club head here, so initially you tend to lift this up here at the beginning. Then going a bit flat here. So instead, initially start along the swing plane here, so more toward the elbow here, and then eventually bring this a bit higher and have this looping motion coming down here.
Okay.
That's a lot better pattern here. But in your case, you're initially lifting and then going flat here. So with that, you're using, you see the backswing is fairly large here, and then when you use the upper body a lot, and you're pulling the handle down, the club head goes high up and then coming down. And then that's why the swing plane becomes a bit stiffer. But this could be just a swing characteristic here. But initially, lifting this is not a good idea.
Okay.
So you can go and then later bring this a bit higher so that you have a natural shallowing.
Okay.
And then this pattern may be the reason of a bit larger
Standard
deviation in the direction here, because this is a bit unnatural movement.
Okay.
So the easier way to do a shallowing is just go a bit higher here and then naturally bring this down and then come down here, instead of lift it here and then go flat and then just to try to throw it out. And then the center of mass motion here. So upper one is the whole body center of mass. The lower one is the pelvis center of mass motion. In the upper one here, generally the pattern we see is that the center of mass moves away and then goes up and then coming down here. But in your case, you don't have an up motion here.
That's with my upper body.
No, this is the whole body center of mass.
Oh, that's the whole,
red
okay.
dot here. And then so usually it goes away and then go up here and then coming down here. So this lowering is good, but you don't have up motion here.
Okay.
That means that the trail leg is a bit weak here.
Okay.
When you use a trail leg action, good, push the ground, and then you will be able to bring this higher and then drop it and then kick here.
Okay.
So when initially the center mass goes flat and then overall is going down here, then in a sense you're intentionally pushing the ground hard instead of slowing down the downward motion. So you're putting more effort, unnecessary effort.
And is that line top of the backswing?
This one?
Uh-huh.
No, this is the initial, so this is reference position, which is the center of the stance, and then the height is where the initial center of mass is.
Okay.
Yeah, so this shows the center of the stance.
Got it.
So then the center of mass is initially stays more on the away side, and then starting the backswing. Yeah, so if you look at your initial position here, your center of mass is shifted to this side a little bit because this is the center of the stance here. If you go up here, you see this is more staying this side. It's better to keep it more on this side, and then when you start the backswing, shift the pelvis away or the center of the body away, and then start turning.
Okay.
That will be easier. So currently at the setup position, I don't see a slight leaning this way here, in spite of your left shoulder higher and the right shoulder lower here. But basically, in this position, still your body is more upright here, and then the center mass is right here. But if you are going to maintain this shoulder position, then lean away slightly here. With that, okay, and then put more force on this side here, and then start from there. You shift and then turn around.
Got it.
Then you don't have to lift this here.
Got it.
This action will just throw the club, and then club head along the swing plane here, and then later you're bringing it a bit higher and then making a loop here. So already the center of mass is located on this side quite a bit here. and then it doesn't have upward motion. So what happens is during the backswing, you see the ground reaction force is fairly upright throughout this motion, even up to this point.
So not much pushing.
Yeah, so you don't have a much horizontal push. It's because you're just standing on the right side. We are not really actively pushing the ground.
Okay.
So when I was taking the pictures of your swing, always what I noticed was that the way you start the backswing was a bit sort of a hesitation and it's kind of awkward motion there.
Okay.
Just one piece active backswing, then go shift and then turn around, rather than just standing on it here. So
Got it.
again, watch this arrow here.
Yeah.
So it goes slightly like this, and then from this point on, you'll see that still this is upright here. Rather, at this point, the center of pressure should be here, and then it starts showing this inclination here toward the target, but it's upright. This means you're just standing on it. And then the two, ground reaction forces here, the horizontal components are similar in the opposite direction, so they cancel each other. That's why the total force only shows this vertical alignment here.
Got it.
So you need to use the trail leg more actively and push more laterally using that. So in order to do that, initially from this side, shifting to this side, and then it's easy to push.
Got
Right?
it. I'm starting too far on the right.
So that's what I see here. And then when you have good active trail leg action, then the center of mass of the whole body moves up and then coming down here, instead of it stays here and then just drops here. That means a weak trail leg action here.
Got it.
And then this is pelvis motion. The red line here is the rotation. So right rotation and left rotation. These are fairly balanced here. Okay, so this is man's average, and this is man's average at impact.
Okay.
But you go slightly over that, this is not a problem here. And then these are reasonably balanced here. So you're not turning this way too much or turning this way too much.
Okay.
It's reasonable. And then the lateral tilt, the blue line is this lateral tilt. Okay. When the hips are not at the same height, then you have lateral tilt. And then the magnitude also, maximum is reasonable here, so about 20 degrees or slightly over 20 degrees, which is good. And the only thing is, and also the pelvis motion here, it goes gradually down and then up. This pattern is okay, but the only thing is, it has to be higher than the initial position here. This blue line shows up and down motion of the pelvis.
Okay.
And then pelvis goes down. You generally go down quite a bit, but you are not bringing this up enough.
Okay.
In the downswing here.
And that's impact.
Yeah, this is impact here. So at impact, the pelvis should be higher than the initial position here. That means when you push the ground good, and then you bring the hip high enough, so that it'll stay higher than the initial position.
So mine's almost lower than than the setup.
So let's see what happens. Swing here. So your pelvis is moving toward here. It'll be better to just use the frontal view here. It's because you dropped it too much here, so it's hard to bring this high enough.
Not enough time too.
Yeah. And then another one is this green line and this red line here. This green one shows the pelvis forward, backward tilt.
Okay.
And then this red line is a forward, backward motion.
Okay.
So these two go side by side here. So when you shift the pelvis backward too much, then the pelvis should also forward tilt.
Okay.
And when this green line goes up, it's a backward tilt. So you have a backward tilt up to this point, and then starting the forward tilt here, it's crossing this line here. this, in other words, the initial alignment here.
Okay.
So this one should not cross. But when it crosses, so you have a more forward tilted position than the initial, that means your pelvis is actually moving backward. So if you look at this red line here, what should happen is the pelvis stays here and then the red line goes here, more forward, and then backward the motion, but it does not return to this level and then go more forward here. So go up and coming down and up here, but it's starting the backward motion early here, about here.
You said that's my pelvis.
Yeah. So the red line shows the forward backward motion of the pelvis here. Initially it goes backward slightly, and then forward here to this point, and then starts going backward again from here, but usually that backward motion should start here. This 5 is when the pelvis rotation is completed. So when the pelvis rotates, your pelvis center mass tends to move forward.
Okay.
If you use the ground correctly.
Okay.
So particularly when you have active right leg and then interact with the ground, then what happens is as the pelvis rotates, the right leg is supporting your body, so the hip is not moving backward as much as the left hip is moving forward.
Okay.
So overall, the center mass moves forward. So for a while, the center mass of the pelvis will move forward as the rotation continues. So when the rotation is completed here, then this is when you start, again, backward motion of the pelvis. Because from here, you're turning this way, so you're turning back, and then that means the center mass is moving backward. Then when the pelvis is now aligned toward the target, okay, and from that point on, now this side it will turn this way. Then the left leg is supporting your body, and the right side is moving forward more. So again, center mass moves forward.
So you never really want it to move backwards than where you started.
So only when you are turning back to this neutral position, it will come backward. But you have more forward motion, and then as you do the backward motion, it will stop about here. And then, so that's a neutral position, and then as the pelvis now turns toward the target, then pelvis center mass moves forward again. So this point should be about here. Okay, so it should go forward, backward, forward. So when this happens, that means that initially you are moving pelvis backward. That means your right hip is moving backward quite a bit here. So in the swing plane view here, let's see. You see here. As you rotate, it's a kind of spinning motion here. So right hip is going backward quite a bit here. It's because of spinning motion. So when the pelvis is, if the pelvis is part of the trunk here, and the spine axis is here, so the whole trunk is inclined forward like this, including the pelvis. When everything rotates about the spine axis, the pelvis will also turn this way here. Then right hip goes up, left hip goes down. But because your right leg is supporting the body, it's more difficult to move the right hip backward. Because if whole foundation is shaking, then the upper body is not stable. So the side that supports the body should have less motion. And then left side is unloaded, so the unloaded side can move forward more. So with that, in the backswing, if you use the right leg actively, then the center mass of the pelvis moves forward. Yeah, but because in this one here, as you can see, the right hip is moving backward quite a bit here. So essentially, you have spinning motion. That's why the ground reaction force is just vertical.
Got it.
If you have a good trail leg action, push the ground, and support the body well with the trail leg here, this goes less backward. And when that happens, the total force inclines this way here.
Got it.
Yeah, because you're pushing the ground actively with the trail leg. So here, this green line and this red arrow, this is a forward backward tilt. And then this red line is a forward backward motion of the pelvis. But if the pelvis moves backward, then it naturally tilt forward here. So this is crossing the line here because coming down to this is a forward tilt. And then this is moving backward. So the backward motion causes a forward tilt of the pelvis. But this is a bit too much. This is too much. It's crossing the line here. So when the pelvis moves backward quite a bit, generally at impact now is returning to the initial position here. That means the pelvis is generally moving backward. When the pelvis is moving backward, then it's hard to push the ground. Because if your body is inclined, upper body inclined, and the legs are here. But if the hip moves backward quite a bit, then it's hard to push the ground with the extended leg.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So only when you keep it, a bit forward, then you push the ground hard, then you can use the leg really well. So, yeah, the pelvis motion, the main one is just the forward-backward motion. You need to move the pelvis forward a bit more. That means you have to refrain from moving the right hip backward too much in the backswing.
Okay.
And then X factor, this is separation between the shoulders and hips. This shows pretty much continuous separations, which is good. The blue line here shows the separation. This is the pelvis angle. This is the shoulder line angle here. The difference is the X factor. And so it's going continuously up and then reach this, so which is good. Now, kinematic sequence here, which is angular velocity patterns essentially. And there are three kinematic sequences. The first one is the backswing sequence, which is based on the timings of peak angular velocity. If you look at the red line, peak occurs here. This is pelvis. Pelvis peak angular velocity occurs here. And then the green reaches peak about here, blue reaches peak about here. And then the gray is the arms. The arms reach peak angular velocity here in the backswing, then the club here. Remember, I said the club shows almost a symmetric club speed. It's because of almost a symmetric angular velocity pattern of the club here. So the club peak occurs about here. This is because your pelvis peak occurs really early here. This is coming from the spinning motion. When you have a spinning motion, you always have an early peak here.
Okay.
And then, so if you move this more toward the center here, then this will move, this will shift.
Okay. Okay.
So in other words, initially, instead of introducing quick spinning motion here, you have more shift motion here with this gradual start and then develop, rotation. Then this moves toward the center of the backswing here, middle of the backswing. All these will move toward the middle of the backswing.
Okay.
Then arm peak will occur later. Club peak will occur later here. So this is a sign of early, quick spinning motion here.
Okay.
And then the second sequence is the transition sequence here. So red is the pelvis, then the thorax, shoulders, arms, and the club here. So these tend to show a bit clustered transition here. So instead of well separated, so a bit clustered here. So, but in general, we do have a sequential transition here. Okay. But because the trunk reaches peak angular velocity early here, then you have a slow deceleration here. But if you build the climax more toward the end of the backswing, so if these peaks are a bit delayed here, then you will have a better transition. So elongated transition phase and then well-spaced transitions. But because you have introduced early motion here, and then gradually slowing down this really slowly here.
Okay.
So you have a hesitation here.
Got it.
So that's why this happens. But still, it's a sequential transition here. And then the downswing sequence is based on the timing of the peak angular velocities. And so this is the pelvis here. So usually the peak occurs about here. About here. So the timing of the pelvis angular velocity peak is okay, but your thorax and shoulders are slightly delayed here. And then this is the arms, and then club here.
So should there be no delay? Should be
These should generally happen at the same time.
okay.
In the downswing, because the downswing time is, anywhere between 235 to 250 milliseconds, and really short. In there, you don't expect that this is a sequential onset of the peak values.
Got it.
So actually, in the downswing, what's better is quickly accelerate the body as early as possible and generate enough angular velocity, then have more time between the peak and impact, so your body can slow down, but your club accelerates further.
Okay.
But your wrist angular velocity is quite high here. This is because of this, your club angular velocity is also high enough. This is the source of your speed. Okay. Although you tend to start, so if you look at this pink line here, or we can go to the wrist section here. So the green line here. Green line shows wrist angular velocity. And then it's turning to positive about here. That means this is the beginning of uncocking. So you are starting uncocking early, but then you have this slight,
Back cocking again.
recocking. But this is not quite cocking, but you're coming, so you're slowing down the uncocking velocity, and then starting again. So this is partially because you're lifting this and then going flat here, so you have to rely on the upper body. When you have a good lower body driven swing here, transition, then on the way down you can naturally develop more cocking here, down cocking, and then delayed release. But you tend to have early cocking, and then touching this, and then uncocking again.
Got it.
But still, your wrist angular velocity is fairly high here. That means
So angular velocity on the wrist means just. Can you explain that?
on the swing plane here,
Uh-huh.
how the wrist moves here
This way.
on the swing plane. So it actually has this motion here. Come down here, and then it will go this way here.
Okay.
But the club line and then the arm here,
Okay.
that's the angular velocity. Yeah, so this is called the recocking pattern here. So early uncocking followed by slight recocking, and then uncocking again. But because you have a really large backswing here, okay, with this still on the way down here, you're still maintaining good wrist cock angle here. Or if you extend this line, so let me add a line here. So this is from the hub to the hand center here. And if you extend this line, this angle here, this is the wrist cock angle. So still at this point, you have good wrist cock angle. So you are maintaining the leg quite well from the large backswing, and then you are maintaining the leg quite well up to this point. That's why you have this high wrist angular velocity.
Okay.
So this is the source of your speed.
Okay.
You're taking advantage of the large backswing quite well, and then later you are letting it go here. So the actual uncocking starts about here, but even at this point, when in the frontal view, when the lead arm is parallel to the ground, still you have a good leg here. So that's the source of your speed.
Okay.
And then, so in general, if you stay cocking, but since you have a large wrist cock angle with the large backswing, it may be a bit difficult. But yeah, this hesitation here, or slow down of the uncocking and then starting, this is actually the source of this high angular velocity here. So you have to maintain that. And then the next one is how you use the ground, let's say. So the middle one shows the magnitude of the ground reaction force. But as you can see at the beginning here,
Not much.
at the beginning you already have larger force in the trailer.
Oh, okay.
This is what I mentioned earlier. Because your center mass stays on this side. So at the beginning, the blue line is the trail leg force.
Okay.
Green is the lead leg force, but you already have a large force on the trail leg. But this should be reversed. It should be reversed. So at the beginning of the back, you still should have a lot larger force on this side. So essentially, the way you start the backswing is already standing on this side and then try to turn here. But keep the force on this side. From there, as you shift to this, now you're loading onto this side, unloading here, loading onto this side, and then turn here. Then these two will cross.
Okay.
So at the beginning, the green will be larger than blue. So you will see X shape here. Then you're loading on the trail side here.
Got it.
And also, in your case, the difference at this point is the maximum here, but the difference keeps decreasing. And then by the time you reach the endopelvis rotation, this is the endopelvis rotation, and this is the top of action here. By the time you reach here, the two magnitudes are similar to each other. But still, this should be close to this side, and then, but this force should incline a bit more. But in this case, you have a similar amount of force, and then it is already shifting toward the lead side here at this point, because it is the center pressure is close to the center here. So before the force is slightly staying on this side, but it keeps moving toward the middle of the stance, and then it goes from there.
And the main reason is because I'm starting too far right. Yeah.
And then so what happens is, so here you have a little bit of push. So this line is one body weight. Okay. So compared to the body weight, you're starting with about equal to body weight force here. And then you have more force here. It's called the push. And then when the force goes below the body weight, it's called the unweighting. Okay? You need to have a good push here, and then continuous unweighting to this point here. But you have push and slight unweighting here, and then it's going back to the
Push.
Weight again, body weight again, and then you have unweighting again. So almost you have multi-stage, interaction with the ground. So that's why the force arrow is shaking here.
Okay.
You see, the force arrow is shaking here, going.
It should generally be like this, and then
It just the center pressure stays here, and then it just simply starts inclining toward the target with the good unweighting here. So about here, so once the ground reaction force passes through the center mass, then it should start showing an inclination toward the target with the good unweighting. So from here, you have to have continuous unweighting all the way here. But you're losing this because the difference between the two forces are, decreasing here. So when you have equal amount of force. But that's why the force arrow keeps standing. So you basically are just turning, spinning.
Okay.
And then you have again the unweighting here. So this is second stage unweighting. We have unweighting here and then another unweighting here. But this can be just connected. But this is because you have early quick action here, and then you have too much time from here to top of action. That's why you have this hesitation here. So that's why I said build the climax more toward the end of backswing, so instead of early on. But in your case, you're starting with more force on the trail side already. That's a bit difficult. So go from lead side push to a trail side push, and then lead side push. With that, you have a continuous unweighting here. Then it will be a lot easier. And then, but your moment time is fairly long here at this point. So this is force arrow, and then this is center of mass, and then the separation here, the gap between the center of mass and then this force arrow, that's the momentum, this arrow here. So at the top, you have fairly long momentum, is more than the man's average. And now this is the peak torque here. This peak torque is way above man's average, which is good. And it's mainly because of this long momentum here. Still momentum is long, and then now your force is growing here. So you have the largest torque here. But then the torque starts quickly decreasing because the momentum is quickly decreasing. So once you reach here, then the force goes upward, more vertically, and then it will start inclining backward here or away. Then you lose the momentum quickly. So the momentum quickly decreases. And then, but since the force is increasing, so it's somewhat compensated. So the torque is not decreasing as much. So you have your advantage. You're still generating fairly good amount of torque from here at the beginning, and all the way to EDA when the lead arm is paired to the ground. So this is your positive side of the swing. But again, here, if you have more push from the trail side, more active push, and then you have a continuous unrating, then the swing becomes actually a lot easier.
Yeah, sometimes it does feel hard. Like I'm working
because
too
you're
much
putting a lot of effort. So
Yeah.
this is coming from your effort, your muscular effort, instead of using the ground well.
Okay.
Particularly when you use the ground well and you have good push here and then continuous unrating here, then the swing becomes a lot easier.
Okay.
And the big portion of it is coming from the leg actions. But because the legs are, not that active here, even the two forces equal to each other at the top here, then you have to use a lot of turn here, using that, try to hit hard with the muscles, and then you have the advantage of, the wrist motion there. So speed is more coming from there. But when you use more muscular effort, then swing to swing variability increases because you have to put a lot of effort there. So when you make the swing easier, then you have more consistency.
Right. Right.
So then you have the maximum force about here. The timing is all right here. But you see, still the difference is not larger here. You could move this center pressure to the lead foot a bit more by having more force on the lead foot and less on the trail side by increasing this difference here. So this can go a bit higher. But this push is good. You are over elite man's average here. And it shouldn't be too high here. If it exceeds 2 times your body weight, then you have a lot of unnecessary push, almost like a jumping-like action here.
Okay.
And then from there to impact, still at impact you have more than body weight, which is good. Okay. So, and here's what I see is you just need to use the trail leg a bit better at the beginning of the backswing. And then for that, you have more force on the leader side initially. From there, shift to the trail side and then load onto this side and then turn here.
Okay.
Then it'll be easier. So the beginning at the beginning of the backswing, the key motion should be shift away. So and then unloading the trail the leader side and then loading the trail side with that. That's probably the key.
Okay.
Then you can easily start the backswing more rhythmically. Then the rest should be the connection should be a lot easier.
Okay.
So so that's what we need to probably work on. So let's have lunch and then with the student, and then we can come back and then have, since I don't have anything in the afternoon, we can have a little bit of reprogramming.
Sure.
Okay. So this here, this shows the forward backward ground direction force. So you have almost a symmetric pattern here, okay? But then also in the downswing, you have the opposite motion. So this is the force acting on the trail side. This is the force acting on the lead side. So this phase okay, but between these two, you have this phase from here to here. The forces are not changing because you have too early action here, quick action, and then you have a long phase here toward the end of the backswing here. But when you move this more toward here, and then you can almost have the forces crossing like this instead of peaks here and then come down and then this phase of force close to zero and then separating again here. So you can shorten this phase if you shifted the climax more toward the end of backswing. So yeah, so that's what I see. And so let's work on how to start the backswing. And from this side, loading from this side. You practiced the step drills, last time. The whole purpose of the step drill is when you have the initial trigger motion this way here, you have to stand on this side here, more force on this side, and then you can later load on this side by unloading this side, and then start the backswing here. When you take the first step, that's actually the action of loading on the trail side. So that flow should be maintained in your regular swing. Okay, any questions?
So far, no.